Hello, my dear students. So, we will continue the next part of the text titled Three Questions. So, the next part starts with As the king came near the hermit's hut, he saw the hermit digging the ground in front of his hut. So, the king wanted to know the answers of his three questions, and when he came near the hut of the hermit. So, what is hut? Hut is actually a small house made of bamboo, bamboo sticks, grass, and the roof is covered with grass, leaves. So, that is hut, not big building. Right? So, when he came near the hermit's hut, he saw the hermit digging the ground in front of his hut. Digging means making hole on the ground, right? Suppose when you want to plant any sapling, any small tree, then you make holes. So he was digging the land, right? So khudai karna in front of his hut. He greeted the king and continued digging. The hermit welcomed the king and continued his work. The hermit was old and weak. The hermit was not young and strong, but old and weak. And as he worked, he breathed heavily. So he was old, he was weak. That's why, as he was working, as he was digging the land, he was breathing heavily. Means suppose you ran for 1 kilometer, then the way you breathe, right? Breathing means inhaling oxygen and releasing carbon dioxide. So breathing heavily, forcefully. The king went up to the hermit and said, I have come to you, wise hermit, to ask you to the right to answer three questions. And said, I came near you to know the answers of three questions. The first question, how can I learn to do the right thing at the right time? So you asked how he could learn to do the right thing at the right time. The first question. Second, who are the people I need most? Means what the people, supporting staff that he needed most. So he wanted to know the answer. And what affairs are the most important? Affairs means things, matters, or business. So what are the matters that are most important? The hermit listened to the king but did not speak. Listened to the questions of the king but did not respond. Right? He went on digging. He continued his work. You are tired. You are exhausted. You are tired, said the king. Let me take the spade and work in your place. He offered to work in the place of hermit. The king said, you are exhausted, you are tired, so let me work. Means give me the spade and I will work for you. Thanks, said the hermit. Hermit said, thank you very much, thanks. Giving the king his spade, and he gave his spade to the king. Then he sat down on the ground. After that, he sat down on the ground. Then, when the king had dug 2 beds, beds means you see small patches of ground for plants, kind of small hole on the ground where you well planned, right? Some small saplings, small trees. So the king had dug two beds for the hermit. He stopped and repeated his questions. After digging two beds, two holes, he stopped and again asked his questions. The hermit gave no answer but stood up, stretching out his hand for the spade and said, gave no answer. And he extended his arm to take the spade and said, now you rest and let me work. And said, now you are tired, so you take rest and let me work. Who said? The hermit said. To whom? To the king this time. But the king did not give him the spade and continued to dig. Hermit wanted to dig, but the king did not give the spade, and he continued his work. 1 hour passed, then another. So the king worked for 1 hour, then another hour. The sun went down behind the trees. The sun set behind the trees. The sun at sets at west, so sun went down behind the trees. Why trees? Because he was there in the jungle, in the woods. That's why the means behind the trees. And at last the king stuck the spade into the ground. Stuck the spade into the ground means he pierced the spade. Right? So he pierced the spade. He stuck the spade. He put the spade on the ground, into the ground, and said, I come to you, wise man, for an answer to my questions. So I came to you. And he addressed him as a wise man and said, for an answer to my questions. If you can give me no answer, tell me so, and I will return home. And said, if you will not tell me the answers, tell me, I will go home. Here comes someone running, said the hermit. Hermit said, someone is coming. Instead of answering, he said, someone is coming. Right? Now you will do the comprehension check. First you will try, then I will say the answers later. Next part. The king turned round and saw a bearded man running towards them. So when the hermit said, someone is running, someone is coming, right? Then the king turned round. पीछे मुड़ना. क्या देखा? Saw a bearded man, a man with beard, mustache, running towards them, coming towards them. His hands were pressed against his stomach. Pressed means hold tightly. Means the man was holding his hands tightly against his stomach. Okay, from which blood was flowing. So it was bleeding. So that's why he was holding his hands tightly. Right? And when he reached the king, he fainted and fell to the ground. And when he reached there, he became senseless, fainted, and fell to the ground. The king and the hermit removed the man's clothing and found a large wound in his stomach. So as the blood was coming, that's why the hermit and the king removed the man's clothing, the dress, and they found a large wound. Wound means cut mark in his stomach. The king washed and covered it with his handkerchief. Washed that wound and covered that wound with his hanky. Why? to stop the flow of the blood. But the blood would not stop flowing. Means the blood, it was bleeding. The king redressed the wound until at last the bleeding stopped. The king again redressed, means again used another hanky or something else over that wound. So at last the bleeding stopped. The man felt something better, and asked for something to drink. Asked for water to drink. The king brought fresh water and gave it to him. Then king brought fresh water and gave the man to drink. By this time the sun had set, and the air was cool air. Right? The king, with his hermit's help, carried the wounded man into the hut. The injured man, the king and the hermit took the injured man into the hut, inside the hut, and laid him on the bed. Means, and helped him to lie down on the bed of the hermit. The man closed his eyes and lay quiet. Closed his eyes and he was lying there quietly, peacefully, calmly. The king, tired by his work and the work, means he walked, he came on foot, okay. So and he had done a great work. Lay down on the floor. He also lay down on the floor and slept through the night. He slept. When he woke up, it was several minutes before he could remember where he was or who the strange bearded man lying on the bed was. So when he woke up, means it took some minutes before you could remember. Sometimes this also happens to you also. Sometimes after, means when you woke up, you couldn't recall, right? Sometime. So here also, he was habituated to sleep in his palace. So when he woke up, after seeing his condition, he couldn't remember where he was or who the strange bearded man lying on the bed was. Right? He couldn't recall for a few minutes. "Forgive me," said the bearded man in a weak voice. "Forgive me." Right? Mujhe क्षमा कर दो. Right? Weak voice. And he saw the king was awake. Woke up. "I do not know you and have nothing to forgive you for," said the king. The king said, "मैं तुमको क्यों क्षमा करूं? I do not know you and have nothing to forgive you for. So why shall I forgive you?" said the king. Here I will stop. I will continue the next part in the next class. Thank you very much.